These are difficult times. Terrorist attacks on our shores, police officers being slain in the street, firefighters defending country from fires set by arsonists. These are the times when we must gather together and show our devotion to the nation that we've grown to love and cherish. These are the times when we must honor those who serve. I'm Paula Stennett, Solutions of Success. This is our tribute to all those who serve. We'll begin with Al Schwartz from New York City, one of the surviving firefighters from 9/11. Stay tuned, more to come. Welcome back to Solutions of Success. Joining me now, Al Schwartz from New York, one of the firemen who survived the horrible 9/11 terrorist attack on our country. I had the good fortune of meeting Al in New York this summer and interviewing him. I'm proud to have him here tonight with us via video phone, and I'm also proud to call him friend. Al?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us in North Georgia, sharing your story. Al, you had a very interesting story when we interviewed this summer. Tell us about that fateful day, September the 11th, 2001.
Okay, it started off, I was supposed to be working that day, and I was home on vacation, and I was planning to do a little field trip. I put a radio on, getting the morning news and the morning traffic reports when I heard a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. Like probably everybody else in the world thought it was a small Piper Cub. I put on the television, and I saw it was a commercial airliner. As I was watching the television, I saw the second plane hit the second tower, and I called the firehouse. I got my lieutenant on the phone, Danny O'Callahan, and to find out what was going on. He says the engine company in our house already responded down on the fourth alarm, and that they were still in quarters. And I reminded him that back in '93, that we were assigned first on the fifth alarm down at the World Trade Center. So as I was talking to him, the fifth alarm came in. He says, "We're going now." And I says, "Okay, I'll come in. I'll meet you down there. At least I can help you carry stuff up and down the stairs." And he says, "Great, I'll see you later." And that was the last I spoke to him. So I started to go into the city, probably with every other off-duty New York City fireman. And as I was traveling into the city, I heard all the bridges and tunnels were closed, and the only way you can get into Manhattan is over a bridge or through a tunnel. So I diverted to one of the local train stations, and I was very fortunate that there was a train there. They were only letting firemen, policemen, doctors, nurses, emergency services people on the train. With the train, so we got on the train with proper identification, and they held us in the train station for what seemed like an eternity. But it was only a short while, and the reason why they were holding us there was because the railroad only goes through tunnels to either Manhattan or to Brooklyn. So they wanted to clear the tunnels to see if to make sure there weren't any bombs in any of the tunnels. I guess it was only maybe 5 or 10 minutes that we sat on the train. They let us go, and as we were going in, you could see both towers burning off in the distance. And we had no idea where we were going. Long Island Railroad goes to two places. One is Penn Station in Manhattan, which would have been good for me because I would have been able to walk up to the firehouse. And the other place is Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn. As it was, the train wound up going into Brooklyn. We all got off the train. I don't know how many of us were on, how many firemen were on the train. We all got off the train, started walking up to the Brooklyn Bridge, and they had the staging area for the fire department over there. They had about 15 to 20 fire trucks there. We loaded up on the fire trucks, and we started to go across the Brooklyn Bridge. And it wasn't until we got on the bridge that we found out that both towers came down. So as we pulled into the area, I guess where the towers were, we got there just pretty much after that big dust cloud cleared. And what we saw, you just couldn't couldn't comprehend. And I tell people that are familiar with computers, you put too much information into a computer, it locks up. Well, I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. I thought I had my brain locked up, and I thought it was me, but it was everybody else. The whole 16-acre site where the World Trade Center was covered with steel. Fires were burning, and surrounding buildings were either damaged or on fire. A bunch of us, also there was like like I said, we got there after that big dust cloud cleared, and it was like a heavy, thick fog that we were going into. And what the dust cloud was pretty much everything in the building was pulverized. The dust cloud was cement dust, steel dust, glass dust, bone dust, asbestos. And like I said, pretty much everything in that building was pulverized. The 15 to 20 days that I spent down there, the only thing that I saw that was recognizable besides remains was a pedestal to an office chair. There were no desks or file cabinets or computers. There was nothing from the building was left. Paper, shoes, some remains, and that was it. Our whole command structure was shattered. There were no radio communications. Nobody knew where anybody was. Nobody knew who was in charge. Nobody knew who was missing. I mean, it was just a whole bunch of nothing other than chaos. I spent the whole afternoon down there looking for my company and also for the engine company. About 5 o'clock, I found one of my chiefs that came down in a spare car, and I hung out with him for a little bit, and then they were going back uptown. I hitched a ride with them back up to the firehouse. I left approximately 5 o'clock that afternoon, and when I left, the building number 7 was totally involved in the fire, and I found out later on it collapsed shortly thereafter, about 5:30. Now, what happens in the New York City Fire Department, our normal work schedule is we work 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 nights on, 3 days off. What happened that day was because of the enormity of the situation, they had what they call a total recall, which meant everybody's day off was canceled, and everybody had to report to their firehouse. Unless you were dead or laying in an ICU someplace, you had to report to work. So I, besides my chief, the only two that went down to the site directly. I got up to my firehouse about 6 o'clock that night, and pretty much, like I said, everybody was there. I was totally covered with this pulverized material. I looked like the Michelin tire guy. And everybody wanted to know, what was going on because there was no communications coming back from the World Trade Center to our dispatchers and nothing coming from our dispatchers out to the field. So I told them I had no information at all. I couldn't find either one of the companies, and it was just total chaos down there. And I described to them pretty much what it was. About 6 o'clock that night, the telephone started to ring, and what it was, I was a senior guy in the firehouse. Nobody wanted to answer the telephone because everybody knew what it was. It was the wives, the sons, the daughters, the girlfriends of the guys working that day. And like I said, nobody wanted to answer the phone because nobody had any information. And I was, like I said, the only one that was down there that would have any information, and I'd had nothing. So, I had to answer the phone and just give out no information at all. About 6:30 that night, my lieutenant's, it was probably one of the worst phone calls I got that day. It was my lieutenant's daughter the lieutenant that I spoke to earlier, and it was his daughter that I knew personally, and she says, "Al, please go find my daddy and bring him home." And from what I saw that afternoon, it didn't look too promising. About 8 o'clock, now we're on the telephone back and forth. We have a direct line to our dispatcher's office in Manhattan, and again, they weren't getting any information coming back from the site, and nothing was coming out to the field. About 8 o'clock that night, I was on the phone again, trying to find out information. When a police officer came into the firehouse, he grabbed me, he threw me up against the wall. He says, "Where's my brother?" And I said to him, I says, "Who are you?" And it just happened to be my lieutenant's brother, Jimmy, his brother Jimmy, who I never met before. I went upstairs, I told the chief what happened, and he says, "All right, get another senior guy, go back down." Jimmy had a police car. He drove us back down to the site. We spent the whole night down there again, and it was just as chaotic that night as it was that afternoon. We made our way back to the firehouse the next morning, and now they were holding us in the firehouse because whoever was in charge of headquarters figured that the companies that responded were now, they kind of assumed they were missing. They didn't want us down there. About 5 o'clock that afternoon, we almost had a mini revolt in the firehouse because people were coming in from out of town and out of state to do our work. And we wanted to go down there and look for our guys. So I went upstairs. I told the chief that, we're going to have a problem downstairs. He says, what's the matter? I told him, we want to go down and look for our guys. So he says, all right, see what you can do to get down there. And we went out. Probably the only New York City bus that was running that day was coming up 8th Avenue. We stopped the bus. We kicked the passengers off the bus. We told the bus driver, you're taking us down to the World Trade Center. If you don't take us, we're throwing you off your bus, and we're taking the bus without you. So reluctantly, he drove us down to the World Trade Center, and he vanished to the winds. We spent the whole night down there again looking for both companies, and again, it was just as chaotic as it was earlier. Again, no communications. Nobody really knew who was in charge. It was just pretty much a free-for-all down there, with search and recovery, looking for guys. We made our way back to the firehouse the next morning again, all covered with this pulverized stuff. And whoever was in charge of headquarters now come down with that they're going to split our chart in half. I told you we worked 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 nights on, 3 days off. They split us in half, and there was an A-B shift. The shift that was working had to stay in the firehouse. The shift of guys that were off were allowed to either, be off, but most of us went down to the World Trade Center to look for our guys. And I don't know how long that 24 on, 24 off went, because what happened to me is I play in a bagpipe band, and after, I guess, the 10th day down there, 10th day, they took everybody from the bagpipe band out of the firehouse and assigned us to the band because, again, whoever was in charge of headquarters told families that if you don't hear from the fire department, start planning memorials for your loved ones. So in the beginning, we did get bodies back. We had a few funerals right in the beginning, and then we went to doing pretty much memorials, and then the few bodies we got back, we had funerals. And this went on for from pretty much till December. I stayed with the band till December, and I played it somewhere. Personally, I played it somewhere between 125 and 150 funerals and memorials. And on our memorial wall, the tent house, there are 343 names, but the bagpipe band played at 469 funerals and memorials. And the reason being that was because families that had memorials in the beginning and were fortunate enough to get bodies back had funerals. So they had a memorial, then they had a funeral. And like I said, I went back to the firehouse in December. I retired the following July 31st. And pretty much that was my 9/11 story. It continues to go on, though, with the pipe band, with funerals, and here and there. To date, I think the number is up to 109 firemen who've died from 9/11 related cancers. I just heard on the news again tonight from our fire commissioner that there's over 1,000 firemen with 9/11 cancers. So it all goes on, and I'm fortunate. I'm not as bad off as some of the guys are because I spent so few days down there. But pretty much that's it, and that's pretty much my 9/11 story.
Well, Al, it's tragic, but I believe your emails with me, you talk about tragedy, but you also talk about the triumph from the 9/11 experience. And of course, we've all seen 9/11 when the towers were struck, the Pentagon, and the plane that landed in the field. You have sent several pictures to me, and Brian has those on the screen at this time. One of the photographs is you in a purple fire shirt, and a young man, looks like in a tuxedo, and a police officer next to him.
Okay, that was the restaurants took very good care of us, during 9/11 and stuff like that. The police officer, Paul Daly, who's since retired, and that was taken in John's Pizzeria on 44th Street. And you wanted a picture of me in my work clothes, so that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. Other than the ones I sent you, I think I sent you a couple of pictures from the Trade Center itself when we were doing some work down there at night.
You did. The next photograph that we'll be showing is you, and you're standing next to one other gentleman. You both have on your fire attire, and it looks like there's broken windows behind you.
Okay, that was probably from the Deutsche Bank when we were doing pretty much. This was well into the operation. Now we were doing pretty much searching. There was pretty much and recovery of whatever we could find. The fire department did what we call search and rescue in the beginning, and I just found out not too long ago that it went from a search and rescue to a search and recovery after about the 10th day. There were days that we were down there in the beginning where there were places where we could crawl into in voids and stuff like that, down below the building, and people have survived through collapses and everything else, but there was nobody to be found. And I guess whoever was in charge at the time, they just went from a straight, rescue and recovery effort to just a recovery effort because they realized that nobody survived. I could mention that total people that were rescued in the rescue operation from the towers attack were 19. That was it. The last person that we pulled out alive was pulled out 26 hours after the original attack, and that was it. That was the best we could do.
Al, one of the photographs you sent us is a picture of truck 54 headed toward the towers. Looks like the first tower was struck, possibly the second tower.
Okay, they went down. They went down on the fourth alarm. I don't know if the second tower was hit at the time yet. Like I said, I called the firehouse. My lieutenant told me that the engine went down on the fourth alarm. Yeah, that was probably the last picture taken of the guys that were alive from 54 engine. Everybody in the company, everybody in my firehouse, all 15 guys were killed that day. And out of 54 engine, only 2 guys were recovered. 4 guys were never recovered from that company. But like I said, that was the last picture probably the last picture that we know of. The guys alive. It's just somebody standing on a West Side Highway that took the picture when the company was responding. That was it.
The next photograph we're displaying is the picture of, looks like a crane, and I believe you said this was ladder 4 being brought up?
Right, that was my company. My company was in the South Tower. Well, we know that for a fact because they got people out of the elevator in the lobby in the South Tower, and we know that, like I said, for a fact because they came up. They remembered the ladder 4 shield. Each company in New York City Fire Department has a number on their helmet, which represents their company. The people they got out of the elevator remembered the ladder 4 on a helmet, and they came up to the firehouse. They looked at some of the pictures of the guys, and they identified the guys and said, yes, these are the guys that saved us. They met with some of the widows, and we assume the company went over to the next elevator to get people out, and that's when the towers came down. And when we got down to the lobby of the South Tower 6 months later, we got all our guys back. And then a month later is the picture that you have when we got down to the bedrock 7 grades below level, 75 feet down. That's when we got our fire truck back in the crane, picking it up.
It's total devastation.
Oh, yeah. Well, we lost, New York City Fire Department lost I think it was 93 pieces of apparatus that day. More than a lot of fire departments have as a whole. That's how many fire trucks we lost that day.
The last photograph we're showing is a handsome group of men gathered together. There are 7 of you there. 4 truck, the pride of Midtown.
Okay. That picture, there's 7 of us there. I think that was the picture from the 1993 bombing. I also responded to that. That was a group of us after we came out of the building that day. And in that picture, standing to the, I think I described it in one of the notes that I sent, was my captain that was killed in 9/11. He was down there with us in 93 too. But that was the group of us that responded down in 1993. So I had the experience of being there both times. The first time was pretty successful. We got everybody out of the building. Took us 8 hours that day to do it, but we got everybody out. And again, pretty much that was the reason why I was going in 2001, because from us running up and down the stairs, my legs felt like rubber for 2 weeks afterwards. So I figured if I can go in on my day off and carry stuff up and down the stairs, I can help the guys out. And like I said before, probably every other New York City fireman that was off that day, went in or went to their firehouse. And I know for a fact that there were better than 50 firemen that were off duty that responded down there and lost their lives. I don't have the exact number, but it's better than 50 guys that just jumped on fire trucks and just came in and wound up getting killed that day. That's the picture from 1993.
When we were in New York, we talked about the irony of that particular day, and the potential was 50,000 people in those towers at that time. However, there were 3 things that actually caused people not to be at work on time or to have taken that day off. One was it was voting day for the mayoral primary.
Right, it's primary election day that day.
And the second was it was the first day of school.
Right.
And the third, a New York's Giants game the night before.
Right, playing Denver Broncos the night before, which started late, so a lot of people were late going to work or didn't go to work that day. So that saved the people. We very, it's a horrible thing to say. There was 2,749 people murdered that day or killed in the buildings, and it could have very easily been in the neighborhood of 40 to 50,000 if the attacks came later in the day or if it was a different day. So I remember watching one of the documentaries on it where the mayor was looking for somewhere. He even made a comment. He says he thought he needed 50,000 body bags. He says, where am I going to get 50,000 body bags from? And like I said, that was a little bit of a godsend that it was that those 3 factors came into, happened, and could have been a lot worse than it was.
It could have been. Mayor Giuliani, I'm sure, was looking for that godsend, that bright light in the clouds. And those 3 events definitely brought some relief to a lot of families. I understand that Gwyneth Paltrow was actually in a car accident that morning near the towers.
I heard that story, yeah. I heard that story, and she saved somebody's life, I believe. Somebody stopped to help her out, and they were late for work, and because of that, they weren't in the buildings. But that's a story I heard before, so I'm sure it's true.
God's always there, even in the greatest of tragedies.
Oh, yeah.
Al, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you for watching Solutions of Success. Uh-oh, Dad's going to be mad.
If you find yourself in need of an attorney, call the law offices of Robert L. Stoltz. From auto crashes to forming a corporation, attorney Robert L. Stoltz can help you through some of life's ups and downs. Call him at 858-0023 or visit his offices at 376 Cloud Springs Road, Fort Oglethorpe.
The passing of a loved one can be the most stressful of times. It's then that you need your neighbors at Wilson Funeral Homes. Locally owned and operated since 1976, 3 generations of the Wilson family have ministered to the hearts of families in Northwest Georgia, creating a fitting celebration of life ceremony. Personalized service is always the hallmark at Wilson Funeral Homes. Don't wait until it's too late. Consider pre-planning today. Wilson Funeral Homes, large enough to serve you, small enough to appreciate you.
Are you looking for the very latest technology in home and commercial security? ERMC Security Solutions offers both. Home security, complete with mobile apps that help you control lights, cameras, door locks, thermostats, and garage doors. Even free tornado alerts. Never leave your garage door open when you receive a text message with a system from ERMC Security Solutions. Add smoke, carbon monoxide, or water leak detection at no additional monitoring charge. Don't trust your home or business to plain old telephone lines that can be cut. ERMC Security Security Solutions offers wireless monitoring. Do you own or manage a commercial business? ERMC Security Solutions offers the latest in camera systems, access control, and commercial fire alarms. Protect your investment with video analytics and crystal clear video from the latest 1080p cameras. Call 899-2753 for a free consultation or visit ermcsecuritysolutions.com. Feel safe with ERMC Security Solutions. TN license 1207 GA LVU 406148.
Welcome back to Solutions of Success, where the topic this evening is very somber but very necessary. Joining me still via telephone interview is Al Schwartz from New York City. Al, thank you for staying tuned. And now we're going to talk a little about the 9/11 Memorial, the Tribute Center. It was fabulous, but at the same time, it was sobering. I would recommend to anyone visiting New York, they must go to the Tribute Center and relive that moment with you and your friends who continue daily to take tours and to explain to people exactly what occurred that day. I noticed when we walked in, one of the first things I saw was a young man's fire apparatus, his coat.
Yes, that was well. The Tribute Center. Let me back. If it's okay, I'll back it up. The Tribute Center was originally started as pretty much as an information center right after 9/11 because there was so much bad information coming out, and nobody knew who was missing, and nobody knew anything. Like I said, it was very chaotic, and it started up pretty much with firemen, and it was like a gathering place for firemen's family. And it involved other people and stuff like that. But the fellow that started it pretty much was Lee Ielpi. And the gear that you saw, Lee was a city fireman, too, retired New York City fireman. And the gear that you saw was Lee's son, Jonathan, that he lost at the World Trade Center. And they had what they called down there, was a band of dads. I think it was 10 or 12 fathers that were on the job, that lost sons that kind of spent the time together looking for their sons. And Lee was very fortunate. He was one of the few that got his son back pretty much intact. And that was the gear that you saw was Jonathan's gear that they recovered from the site after they, found him in the rubble.
Oh dear. Just the thought of how that father, all of those fathers must have felt at that time as they searched and held on for any shred of hope.
Yeah, they did, but coming from the job, they knew pretty much after the second week that it was, again, like it was a recovery effort. In fact, one of the guys from my company, John Tipping, I worked with his father. His father was on the job, too, and he was one of the band of dads that lost his son. We got John back, but, he was one of the few that got him back. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, that from the entire site, there was only 174 bodies recovered, and that was it. And the medical examiner considered anything more than 50% a body. And, again, that was from the entire, both buildings. And most of the 174 were firemen because of the gear that we wear kind of keeps everybody all together and, all together. And that's how come we got so many guys back.
Oh, dear. Going on around the corner at the Tribute Center, I saw a large number of hand-painted tiles. What were those tiles about?
Okay, the tiles were from an art project from a school on the Lower East Side that were put on display in one of the parks down on the Lower East Side. And then after they made a memorial down there, there were memorials all over the city. And after they decided to take the memorial apart, they donated what you saw from down there. They picked the best ones, and they sent them up to the Tribute Center. And those are the tiles that you saw.
Okay. I noticed that they had all different countries, different sayings. It was a wonderful project. How old were those children?
I believe they said it was elementary school.
Elementary school children put that much thought. And the tiles are now scrolling. Our viewing audience are looking at the tiles as we speak and can see how much thought and how much this must have weighed on those young children's minds who constructed the tiles. As it weighed on everyone throughout the world, those of you who were there, it was so much more real as you knew people who were there and experienced it firsthand.
Right. And those kids, those kids all knew, what happened because they were pretty much in the neighborhood, as you would say, they were down the Lower East Side, so they were probably affected by some of the dust and everything else. But they were right in the mix of it.
Right across from the tiles, I noticed there's a work of origami.
Right. That came from Japan. They're famous for their origami, and that was a donation to the World Trade Center, to the Tribute Museum, as a memorial, just like the tiles were. And, those are the ones that you saw hanging in the Tribute Center in the back there.
So,
I don't know how many there are, but there are quite a few.
Oh, there were. It looked like hundreds of them.
Yeah, and they're quite extensive. They're very, very, they're great. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
They are. There were people from all over the world who sent things to the Tribute Center. I noticed a Costco vest from a lady that was there. I noticed also a majority of photographs with sayings from people who were there who still volunteer. Are most of your volunteers people who experienced the Trade Center, had someone there, some relation to the Trade Center?
Right. The only way you can be a volunteer down there, and this is one thing that we're kind of proud of, the only way you can be a volunteer down there is either if you were a survivor from the building, lost a family member, actually volunteered down there, and as a volunteer down at the site itself, or a rescue worker, fireman, policeman, like myself. And like I said, that's the one thing that we pride ourselves on is the fact that you have a first-hand experience when we do our tours. You meet somebody that was actually involved with it, and you're not brought on a tour with somebody that's reading a script from someplace. That's the one big thing we pride ourselves on.
As you should, because the stories I heard that day were moving, without a doubt. The artwork on the side of the building, I stopped and filmed it. It looks like a bronze work that goes down the side of the building.
Yes, that's what that was. There was a fellow, Glenn Wennick, who was a lawyer from one of the law firms down there, who was also a volunteer fireman in Jericho. He was an EMT, AMT, and when the towers were struck, Glenn left the office and grabbed his medic bag from his car and responded over there to the World Trade Center site, and he wound up getting killed when the buildings collapsed. So what happened was the law firm started to take up, they had what they called an ice fund. We needed ice down there for water and just to flush our eyes out and, to keep everything cold. And I don't know how many millions of dollars wound up in the ice fund, but when all was said and done, they had this money left over, and the law firm decided, well, they can't give the money back to people that donated it, so they commissioned this bronze plaque that you saw on the side of the firehouse. And it's 3 pieces. It's, I think, 60 feet long, 8 foot high, and it depicts the events of the day. It shows you the fire department responding. The middle plaque shows you both towers being hit by the planes, and the third section of the plaque shows you the apparatus that was being used, at the World Trade Center site. And below that is the names of the firemen that were killed that day, from the chief of department, first deputy commissioner, down to a probie, and that's how it's listed. It's not listed in companies. It's not listed. Nobody's listed with any rank or anything else, and it has everybody's name on it that was killed that day. Also, on a plaque next to the names is the fact that if you were on a promotional test, on a promotional list, they promoted you posthumously, and they gave you the title of whatever the next rank was. So, there's an asterisk next to people's names and stuff like that with the rank that they were promoted to. And one thing that people don't know, unless you come on that tour, is that behind that plaque, the fire department invited the families down to write love letters and notes to their loved ones, and they put them on the wall of the firehouse, and they're sealed behind the plaque, and they're there forever. And that's what that plaque is. And it's pretty much the official fire department memorial for 9/11.
It's a very moving tribute. 343 firefighters lost their lives.
Right.
It's a large number, and to commemorate all of those, what a moving tribute, and as you said, it's there forever.
And also, you saw the plaque. Also, there's another plaque. One of the buildings that were damaged over there was the Deutsche Bank. And a couple of years afterwards, there was a bad fire in the bank where another 2 firemen were killed. And there's another plaque on the wall a little further down from the main plaque with their names on. And so really, 343 were killed on 9/11, and then they figure in the other 2 that were killed, I believe it was 2005 after the Deutsche Bank fire.
New York has definitely had its share of heroes.
I tell people, and I think I told you too, I said, we're not heroes. If you did what we did for a living, you'd be the hero. This is what we were paid to do, and this is what we accept. What happens, the chances you take. Nobody's a hero. We're not heroes. It's that job. That's what it was. It was that job.
And that's what I wanted you to say, Al. Thank you for sharing that sentiment. The last tribute is to Father Michael Judge. Father Judge was recorded as the first victim in the 9/11 tragedy. He rushed in to give sacrament. Joining me now, Al's going to tell us what happened.
Well, Father Judge was in the lobby of the South Tower where the command post was, and I guess he had a heart attack while he was praying, and that was pretty much what happened. There was a French film crew that was filming of the fire department that just happened to be with the chief, and they let him come into the lobby of the tower, and they did have pictures of Father Judge, and I have video of him standing there praying, and you can just see the look on his face that it just he knew things weren't good. It just I don't think he realized how bad. Nobody knew how bad it was, but you could just tell on the look of Father Judge's face that things didn't look good, and he didn't look good.
Oh, and you knew Father Judge.
Yeah, I had the privilege. Well, Father Judge, like I said before, as being in the bagpipe band, we have a lot of connections. Father Judge was an honorary member of the bagpipe band, and he used to come to our meetings and hang out with us. Plus, his church was not too far from my firehouse, so every once in a while he would drop by. And if there was a fire in the neighborhood, he'd just pop over and see what was going on. And I'm fortunate. Well, Father Judge was that type of person that he would write everybody a letter for their birthday or for the holidays or something like that. And I'm fortunate that for some reason I kept the letters that he wrote, and I still have them in my possession.
Oh.
So very, very fortunate with that. But Father Mike told him Father Mike. That was don't call me Father Judge. It's Father Mike. That's how he was. He was one of the guys. In fact, he wanted me to leave the firehouse and come be his driver because the chaplains get their own personal drivers because they're considered deputy chiefs. And he wanted me to he begged me to come be his driver, which I refused to do. So that's how well I knew him.
He was definitely the type of priest. He was definitely a man of God.
He was.
Who would come in, and his last words are recorded here. Probably the film crew said, "Jesus, please end this right now. God, please end this." And while he was praying, he had a fatal heart attack. You said you could tell from his face on the video that you have that he knew things were dire, that it was very, very bad.
Oh, yeah.
So what a priest. God sends people in at all times to take care of other people, and to the very end, Father Mike was doing that.
And I could tell you this for a fact, that again, with the bagpipe band, with all the funerals that we've done over the years, Father Judge was always there, and that if he didn't have a heart attack at the site on 9/11, it would have killed him with all the funerals. It would have just killed him, to see what happened.
A man of God who loved people.
Oh, he did. He certainly did. I laugh every time I think about that, because he certainly did. And he was one of the, to us, he was one of the guys. He was one of the guys.
Another blessing in the sign of terror.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you, Al, again for joining us, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
You're very welcome. I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Uh-oh, Dad's gonna be mad.
If you find yourself in need of an attorney, call the law offices of Robert L. Stoltz. From auto crashes to forming a corporation, attorney Robert L. Stoltz can help you through some of life's ups and downs. Call him at 858-0023 or visit his offices at 376 Cloud Springs Road, Fort Oglethorpe.
The passing of a loved one can be the most stressful of times. It's then that you need your neighbors at Wilson Funeral Homes. Locally owned and operated since 1976, 3 generations of the Wilson family have ministered to the hearts of families in Northwest Georgia, creating a fitting celebration of life ceremony. Personalized service is always the hallmark at Wilson Funeral Homes. Don't wait until it's too late. Consider pre-planning today. Wilson Funeral Homes, large enough to serve you, small enough to appreciate you.
Are you looking for the latest technology in home and commercial security? ERMC Security Solutions offers both. Home security, complete with mobile apps that help you control lights, cameras, door locks, thermostats, garage doors, and more. Even free tornado alerts. You'll never leave your garage door open all night with a system from ERMC Security Solutions. Receive a text message if your garage door is left open. Add smoke, carbon monoxide, or water leak detection at no additional monitoring charge. Don't trust your home or business to plain old telephone lines that can be cut. ERMC Security Solutions offers wireless monitoring. Do you own or manage a commercial business? ERMC Security Solutions offers the latest in HD and IP camera systems, access control, and commercial fire alarms. Protect your investment with video analytics and crystal clear video from the latest 1080p cameras. Call 889-2753 for a free consultation or visit ERMCSecuritySolutions.com. Feel safe and secure with ERMC Security Solutions. TN license 1207GA, LVU 406148.
Welcome back to Solutions of Success. Tonight we've spoken about fire, police, and we've also spoken about those in military service. We left out one important part of service. Over 300 specially trained dogs were used just at the World Trade Center site. In fact, the last survivor pulled from the rubble was found by one of these specially trained canines. Each year on 9/11 in Jersey, there's a parade and a special day to honor the service dogs, some of who gave their lives to find humans and to help and serve their country. So I wanted to take a moment and thank the 9/11 Tribute Center, because they acknowledge the service provided by mankind's best friend, unconditional love. Please check out 9/11 Hero Dogs on YouTube for more information about the canines who served our country that day.
The idea got started from one of our supporters who had seen the second plane hit the second tower. She watched the search and rescue dogs and the other canines serve tirelessly every day, and she felt that there had not been any recognition of the dogs. So she approached us about doing something. We thought that was a worthwhile cause, and as we began to research it, we found out there had not been any national recognition. And that led to the beautiful and patriotic ceremony that we had on 9/11 at Liberty State Park.
A lot of people and the dogs never got any recognition for all the work that they did for 9/11. They're not looking for any rewards, they're not looking for any honors. They do that because that's what they do. And it takes a lot more work than people realize.
As the parade began to assemble, there were 100 American flags lining Liberty Way, with the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island bearing witness. The wind came up and the flags were flying so proudly straight out. The route was lined with breeds of dogs who were currently serving search and rescue. They were there to honor the 9/11 teams that served. We literally had teams from the East Coast and all the way through the country, the West Coast.
As they marched and came down the walkway, the setting was very, very beautiful, and all of those that were there to walk through that arch was a feeling that I would never forget. To see the tears, to see the emotions of all of these people paying tribute to the dogs and to those who served our country so well.
As the Joint Service Guard leading our parade got to the corner of Liberty Way, unexpectedly to us, the families who had been at Ground Zero for their solemn ceremony were coming back on the ferry, and they merged.
It was actually a moment that I will never forget in my entire life. And as our parade moved forward and they stood in line to go through the Arch of Honor, the looks on the faces of the 9/11 honorees moved me to tears. I was literally put my head down. I was weeping. And I looked at their faces and there was so much emotion. I didn't really know how to define it. It was just an honor for them to experience. And I have to say, I've done a lot of things in my life, but I have never been more humbled.
The men, women, and dog teams who searched the rubble for weeks did so quietly with dignity. They were unmotivated by any sense of gain as we think of that term. It is to them that we pay honor on this 10th anniversary. They have not asked for it. They have never expected it. As much as any, they are deserving.
Lieutenant Lim, who was one of our guests of honor, was one of the 13 survivors found under Tower 2. Lieutenant Lim is a Port Authority bomb detector handler, and his dog Sirius was the only dog who was killed on 9/11.
Sirius was my partner and my friend. When I say that, I mean that thoroughly throughout my heart, as most of the people in this audience know, all being dog lovers. Well, what I want to remind everybody, that this award is not about Sirius dying, but it's about how Sirius lived. Defending the people of the World Trade Center, I want to take this opportunity to thank all the military personnel that put forth their lives in defense of our liberties.
The most important thing for America to know about the working dogs is that on a very personal level, they serve human beings every single day. They are highly skilled and trained professionals who are not yet recognized for what they do. And to the best of our knowledge, we have been repeatedly told that technology cannot, at this point, replicate the unique skills that they have.
I'm grateful to have had the chance to just help a little in organizing and bringing together some recognition for the value of a well-trained dog and how they serve mankind and have since the beginning of time.
So every single day, whether you're an animal lover or you know about working dogs, they are out there making a difference in your life and in America's life.
When you have a working dog, you're constantly working with these dogs, and they fill a place in your heart. I'm sorry.
Time and time again, the dogs in their lives have shown that watchful, determined, alert, fearless, loyal, and obedient are not mere words. They are the difference between life and death.
On September the 11th, 2001, 19 militants associated with the extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airliners and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Over 3,000 people were killed during the attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C., including more than 400 police officers and firefighters. It was a clear Tuesday morning. An American Airlines Boeing 767 loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 80th floor of the 110-story skyscraper. Instantly, hundreds of people were killed, hundreds more trapped. as the evacuation of the tower and its twin got underway. Television cameras broadcasted live images of what people initially thought was an accident. Then, 18 minutes after the first plane hit, a second Boeing 767 United Airlines appeared out of the sky, turned sharply toward the World Trade Center, and sliced into the South Tower near the 60th floor. That collision caused a massive explosion that showered debris over surrounding buildings and the streets below. America was then officially under attack. These attacks reportedly were financed by the Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda terrorist organization. They allegedly were acting in retaliation for America's support of Israel and its involvement in the Persian Gulf War and its continued military presence in the Middle East. Some of the terrorists had lived in the United States for more than a year and had taken flying lessons at the American commercial flight schools. Others had slipped into the country in the months before September 11. The 19 terrorists smuggled box cutters and knives through security at the airports and boarded the 4 flights bound for California. They chose those particular flights because the planes were loaded with fuel for the long transcontinental journey. Soon after takeoff, the terrorists commandeered the 4 planes and took the controls, transforming these jets into missiles. Less than 15 minutes after the terrorists struck the nerve center of the U.S. military, a catastrophic turn for the worst when the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. The structured steel of the skyscraper, built to withstand winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and a large conventional fire, could not withstand the tremendous heat generated by the burning of the jet fuel. At 10:30 a.m., the other Trade Center tower collapsed. Close to 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center and in its vicinity, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings. Only 6 people in the World Trade Center towers at the time of their collapse survived. Almost 10,000 others were treated for injuries, many severe. Meanwhile, a 4th California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark International Airport in New Jersey. The plane had been delayed in takeoff as passengers learned of the New York events via cell phone calls. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife over the phone, "I know we're all going to die. There's 3 of us who are going to do something about it. I love you, honey." Another passenger, Todd Beamer, was heard saying, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll," over the open line as they realized their flight was in jeopardy as well. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained what had happened. She said to him, her last words, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye." The passengers fought the 4 hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit. The plane flipped over, sped toward the ground, 500 miles per hour, crashing in a rural field in western Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m. All 45 people aboard were killed. Its intended target is not known, but the theories include White House, the U.S. Capitol, Camp David presidential retreat in Maryland, or one of several nuclear power plants along the eastern seaboard. At 7 p.m. that evening, President George W. Bush, who had spent the day being shuttled around the country because of security concerns, returned to the White House. At 9 p.m., he delivered the televised address from the Oval Office declaring, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shattered steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." In reference to the eventual U.S. military response, he declared, "We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them." Terrorist acts have continued in our country, and those brave people still rise to keep our home the land of freedom because of the brave. God bless America. Long may it stand.